from the CBW Radio UK studios in Chelmsford, this is Off the Record with Big C and his trusty companion, Stinky Pete.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is Big C, and this is Off the Record. And I've got not two trusted companions. Well, I do have two trusted companions. Stinky Pete's with me. Jazzy Jeff is off doing family business. So we've got returning by popular demand, obviously. We're from the UFO capital of the world in Bonnie Bridge, I believe it is, in Bonnie, Scotland. We've got Gordon Wallace, who's Stinky Pete's final dealer.
My dealer.
Your dealer. Your dealer from up north, from across the border. Okay, so it is episode 177. So season 7, episode 7. I'm not quite sure when you were last on, actually, Gordon. Quite a while ago. I should have checked that out before we came on, but
yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's been post-COVID, I'm sure. It's not that long ago.
It was. Gordon did a session with Jeff. That was the last one.
Yeah. I don't remember that. I don't remember it. Okay. I definitely should have checked that out.
One of the very first ones that Jeff did.
Well, we're quite pleased, as Spurs fans, we're quite pleased to get away from Twitter, or X as it's called, after the news breaking tonight, when there's a meltdown city, Arizona, on there regarding the possibility of not signing a player and Arsenal getting him from under our nose. But we're not going to talk about that because that'll depress everyone, although it doesn't really.
I'm not going to talk about it because I've never given less shits about anything.
Okay, fair enough.
It's just a footballer. Nobody cares.
No, all right.
He's chosen to play for somebody else. Good luck to him.
His boyhood team.
Yeah. Good luck to him.
Bastard, eh? Bastard. Right. Thank you very much, Shaggy. So we're off and we're doing this episode and we're doing swear boxes at the ready for Stinky Pete, I think, tonight. Because we're doing a little special feature on the punk new wave scene and the punk new wave genre. I'm guessing we're talking sort of mid-ish to late 70s to early 80s period as a general, but there'll be influences before that and perhaps some sort of after effects beyond that into the 80s and even into the 90s, actually, I think. So that's the general discussion. I know Stinky Pete is not a fan. You've already been effing and blinding to me on a text during this radio show this morning when I played a Sex Pistols song. Not overly complimentary about it, were you?
Well, I think your problem there is using the term song and Sex Pistols in the same sentence.
All right, okay. Well, I'm sure there'll be mention of the Sex Pistols. You're not such an anti-punk new wave person, are you, Gordon?
Very close to my heart, that whole genre, that whole area. So yes, what stirs Pete's ire gives me soothing balm to my soul. So yes, that's right up my alley, as they say.
Yes, right up my Strasser as well, definitely. So what is, apart from the antithesis of what Stinky Pete normally likes to listen to, what is punk and new wave? I mean, how did it all start? How would you see it, Stinks? Or Gordon, actually.
Sorry, I thought you, because I was, rather than Pete jump in with his scorn and invective.
Yeah, you big it up first.
Excuse me, I am going to be very, very balanced, as I always am. Over to you, Gordon.
Okay. You're going to hate them all equally. Yeah. I would say, for me anyway, the genesis of it would be the American sort of early to mid 70s sort of scene, sort of CBGBs, and my great friends. I don't know, we get the t-shirt in here. Hold on.
All right.
New York Dolls.
New York Dolls. Okay, yeah.
So the Dolls, I would say. Certainly the genesis or the germination with their attitude, maybe the what was it they described as brickies and spandex sort of look, applied to them in Sweet equally. But I would say that, and CBGB's are obviously the Ramones, huge influence. And then, you've got your Talking Heads, you've got your Blondies, and that's going to spread out obviously through Mr. McLaren into the Pistols, the Clash, the Damned, and all those other giants, musical giants, Pete, of the punk scene.
Of the genre. And a television, you'd probably bracket in there as well, television?
Yep. I was Tom Verlaine, television.
Tom Verlaine, he passed away.
Yeah, Heartbreakers, that whole nascent sort of...
Yeah. The Heartbreakers, and funnily enough, we talk about the Heartbreakers. I'll get onto your criticism in a moment, Stinks. But one of the, I know it's not the same genre, but it sort of came roughly the same time as it was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, a different Heartbreakers. But when I got the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers first album, it was like that was kind of in the same sort of bag and ballpark.
I always thought they were more mainstream in the same way as maybe, the equivalent out here might be Graham Parker and the Rumour, who were always bracketed in, but they were far more sort of musicians, had a brass section. So Tom Petty, I always thought as a straight, lineage for, maybe something like the Tremolos and the whole sort of American guitar rock thing, Grateful Dead, even Boston, things like that. You could see elements of that in it, but they obviously, because they were quite energetic and they had good drive and stuff, they were lumped in with the sort of early punk. And although Damn the Torpedoes is as good a new wave album as you'll hear, I never quite, for me, they never quite sat in there as easily. I thought they were more traditional.
Yeah, maybe so, but maybe it's just because they came out around about the same time. I mean, I was buying all these singles. I even bought the first Motorhead single, Motorhead, and I bracketed that in. But that's certainly not new wave. But it's sort of a new wave of heavy metal, perhaps. I don't know. So yeah, okay. Yeah, Tom Petty and Heartbreakers was an odd one. I thought I'd throw that in as a possible influence. I don't know. Stinks. You have got something to say, no doubt, as a general about.
As I said,
the genre.
I am very measured about this. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and I'll come back to this in a minute. But at the time that punk happened, and I'm disaggregating punk and new wave because they are not the same. Because the new wave, like the Jam and Elvis Costello and people like that, they were good musicians who understood music and could write good songs, and they wrote good words. So I was totally, it wasn't my problem with new wave at the time was that it was all too short, because you know me, I just get into a piece of music and then it's bloody finished and I go, well, what was the point of that? So the 3-minute single just does my head in. Anyway, that notwithstanding, so at the time that the punk stuff came out, I absolutely hated it. And I hated it for 2 reasons. One, because there was all this lippy, leery stuff about we're here to, take over from the big prog bands and the big heavyweights of rock, the Led Zeppelins and the people like that. And I'm just going, don't be stupid. You're gnats in comparison. So don't pick a fight. It's like you being a wren and picking a fight with a rhinoceros. It's the stupidest thing ever. So just don't go there. The other thing that really annoyed me about it, and bearing in mind that punk happened when I was at university, and I was busted my balls through O-level and A-level to get to university, and then was working hard to get a degree so I got a decent job. And there were all these snotty-nosed little kids who hadn't bothered doing their O-levels and were all hanging around spray painting this, that, and the other, and then thinking the world owed them a living. So this whole teenage rebellion, my response to that was, get a freaking job, you twat. So I don't buy the whole musical rebellion bit for those reasons. Okay, now, having now gone back in my late 50s, early 60s and listened to a load more stuff, I now look at it with different eyes. And I look at it and go, it was as valid a youth movement as any other youth movement. It was as valid a youth movement then as the youth movement in the late 60s was in San Francisco and whatever. Did I like the music? No. Do I listen to it now and appreciate its place in musical history? Yeah, absolutely. And over the years, have I grown to like some of the songs? Yes. And not hate more of. So in other words, not hate as many as I did. So the answer to that is yes. So I can have a sensible and intelligent conversation about punk and about new wave. For me, punk started in America in 1969 with MC5. And that's where I see it start. And I like MC5. We talked about them a couple of weeks ago.
We did. Yeah.
So for me, that's where punk started. And I don't know the New York Dolls stuff, but certainly the American new wave and the American punk stuff, I kind of have really got more affinity for than the British, certainly on the punk side of it. But I have got a list of 11 bands and some of their songs which I like, any of which I'm very happy to listen to. Having said all of that, the Sex Pistols are utter, intolerably shit. At no level have they done a single note which is worthy of any remembrance whatsoever. They are crap. And Never Mind the Bollocks is possibly the worst album ever recorded after everything that Queen and Kate Bush did and Madness. And
so you're not a fan? You're not a fan then of the Sex Pistols? We've established that.
I hate them with a passion.
Well, I understand what you're saying about the punk and new wave. I separate the two. I mean, in many ways, and also some of the points you raised earlier as well about the music. They couldn't play a note, and they couldn't compete with the likes of Floyd or Zeppelin or whatever. But then the other thing about the kids dressing up and painting and stuff, if you take away all of the media frenzy and the fashions and the safety pins away from it all, which personally I wasn't into in the slightest, and just treat, even I would say the Sex Pistols, if you take away all of that from that band, and just like all the other bands that I like, they're just, and you mentioned the music, obviously Sid Vicious is another matter because he never played a note. But I mean, Glenn Matlock was a great musician. We played with Blondie as a bassist.
Hang on. No. Right. Let me stop you there. Great musician. He was a perfectly adequate musician playing kind of music. Great. No, I'm sorry, I'm not. I do not buy.
It's what your definition of great is, but Pete, do you know what I mean? That's the whole thing. You equate great musician with great musicianship. I would say a great musician can be somebody who writes great songs, not necessarily, labyrinth chord progressions or 15-minute solos or something, but
I'm not particularly. It doesn't have to be a 15-minute solo, but it does have to be music.
But it helps.
To be a great musician, he has to be a musician.
Yeah, but would you not concede that he is a musician? It's just your definition of what makes a great musician is totally different to mine.
Well, he's a musician, and so's everybody who picked up a guitar and played a note or hit a drum or played a piece of keyboard.
Yeah,
you can be a great band without being necessarily great musicians.
That's a different thing. You can have all of the different parts come together and make something that works, even if none of the individuals are great. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I agree with what Gordon was saying there. It does depend on your tastes.
Ultimately,
but I mean, Steve Jones, a bit of the guitar behind it was. You can tell Steve Jones' guitar work on anything. You can tell it on other stuff that he's done. He's been involved with, like the Professionals and the thing with Phil Lynott and Scott Gorham, was it? Yeah, the Greedies thing. I mean, and Paul Cook on drums. I mean, they were and they're great. They're great songs as far as I'm aware. But they're just a great guitar. As I like a lot of these like guitar bands. It's rock and roll. It's rock and roll. If
it's
John
funny,
Lydon is a bit of a fool, I know, but
yeah, I would give that. But I was listening to Pete's sort of intro there, and I was the 2 years at school. I was the polar opposite, right? And when I was at school, there was two camps, right? And they literally sat in my music room on two separate sides of the classroom. You had the guys with the Pink Floyds and the Dire Straits and Bartley James Harvest and
the Genesis.
Genesis. They were on one side with their arms stuck under them, and there was the Feel Goods, the Pistols, the Clash, Costellos, and all the rest of us. And the difference I would say now is, see how Pete has gone back and says he has, with hindsight, enjoyed some of that stuff that he dismissed. I still hate all those bands. I still hate Floyd, and I still hate Genesis, and I still hate... So I was on the complete other side of that fence. And what makes a great... I mean, I cannot sit through that side of the moon if my life depends on it. I've never listened to a whole Zeppelin. I've listened to individual tracks because I clean a lot of them and I'll grade them. And I still can't find anything of merit in any of the albums or any of the bands. So it's just
that's the same with, but that's the same with me and a lot of the punk stuff. I've picked 1, 2, 3, 4. I've picked 5 punk bands of these who I can listen to. If you said to me, go through your record collection, which is a pretty decent size by now, and pick the stuff you're going to listen to, I'll pick that stuff once in a blue moon. And I last weekend played the entire Zeppelin collection front to back, all of the albums, all the sides, plus the BBC sessions. So
swinging from the chandeliers after that.
But you see, if I had to listen to more than 2 notes of Never Mind the Bollocks, I'd have to go out and shoot people. So,
It's funny. I will agree with you there. I think Never Mind the Bollocks has great moments on it. But as an album, it's pretty sparse. It's pretty ropey. So I would say that's maybe the worst example of a huge punk album. Marquee Moon, I think you could sit and listen to that television, the whole album. I think you would enjoy it, and it's
the odd track that I've heard of it, I don't mind, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's why I'm saying I've changed over the years to appreciate stuff that when I was growing up and when I was in that zone, I wouldn't have given house room to, And I see Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers as a rock band, not as a punk band. I would never put them as punk or new wave.
Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers?
No.
Okay, well that's fair enough. I mean, I'm certainly on the fence with that, but it's just part of my learning curve, if you like. The stuff I was listening to from the sort of mid 70s onwards incorporated a lot of these bands, some of them which we've mentioned, like Dr. Feelgood, like the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, like Graham Parker and the Rumour, like Eddie and the Hot Rods, for example. All these sort of bands. And there was a band called the Count Bishops that I really loved as well. That's probably one of the first efforts which I'll come on to. And that sort of led me into, and it's just rock and roll to me. And not that fussed about lyrics to the songs, to be honest. I mean, and the cause that they're behind. I just love the music. I love rock and roll music, and it's good rock and roll. And Quo beforehand were like doing rock and roll music, rock music, catchy tunes, which a lot of the punk and new waves. But I take us back to the first point we're talking about, punk and new wave. One of the points, at least, they are completely different. I would say punk bands are less accessible generally than new wave is. I would say new wave. It is a general term that maybe you've done that anyway, Pete. New wave. It does sort of encompass some of the punk stuff as well. I mean, When you say punks, you're thinking of Sex Pistols, basically. Who else do you think of as punks?
Well, Sex Pistols, Dan, Clash, Stranglers, Sham 69, Susie and the Banshees.
Yeah. Okay, but many of which, of course, have
another
moved on.
distinction. Sorry, Colin, is I would say the majority of the punk bands, with a few exceptions, were singles bands.
Yep,
I
agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Singles. Very, very few of them made albums. Maybe later on, so maybe you could argue for like the Banshees and things like that, and even the Damned to some degree later on in the career. But the early stuff was always packed. They were singles bands, and that's even maybe the difference between them and New Wave. New Wave, acts like Costello, Joe Jackson, things like that made brilliant albums. Quality one end to the other, and I think very few of the punk bands certainly initially.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, there weren't many punk. I mean, the Damned, I think I'm right in saying, was the first British punk album on Stiff Records, wasn't it?
Single. They would say that and it's on my list. They would say that New Rose is generally credited as being the first punk single.
First UK punk single. Yeah. I agree. That's generally known as, and that's certainly down on my list.
And it's down on my list too.
Wow.
Well,
we have an agreement. Maybe we should start at something we agree on.
Actually, no, there was something called can I just say something else? Okay. Because you made another important point, which you said that, that punk, you like the punk stuff because it was just like plain rock and roll. Okay.
Yeah.
But which I
not difficult.
Get.
Not difficult.
No, absolutely.
Not great musicianship, maybe. I don't know. But the catchy songs, just great tunes as far as I'm concerned.
You see, for me, I don't listen to Chuck Berry or any of that lot either. That kind of music just doesn't do it for me. I could, if it's on, I'm not going to run out the room and switch the radio off, but it just doesn't do it for me. The 3-minute chuck away pop song, it just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I would say the big difference for me listening to that music, and I was just a totally glam sort of guy, pop, sort of Bowie, T-Rex, all that kind of stuff. The thing that the punk had, that the Floyds and the Zeppelins was energy. It was just went. It really just cracked on. Whereas, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, and these just kind of meander away for however long they're on and all these things. Where this was a short, sharp, get up, you're 16, 17.
Yeah. But you see this.
That's not again, Pete. That's not Pete, though, is it? That's not Sting.
It's absolutely not me. If I want the energy, I'll listen to Lynyrd Skynyrd, or I'll listen to the Tubes, or I'll listen to Guns N' Roses or Motley Crue. They've all got energy. Kiss have got energy. It's a question of your definition of energy, isn't it?
But then it's also a question of
that was a characteristic of them that really, for young people, that washed all the rest of the stuff away. And it did at that time, it was very divisive when you think about it. And
completely.
Because I do a lot of record fairs, what amazes me now is I'll get somebody coming up and buy Dark Side of the Moon, and at the same time buy Susie and the Banshees, or buy, a Buzzcocks album or things like that.
Well, you see, that I probably would now.
Yeah, but that never happened then. You had camps. It was as divided as Celtic and Rangers up here. You were in one.
If you went into a record shop, the way it was divided up, you literally would have the two sides. You'd have the rock and blues guys with me on one side, and you'd have the punks on the other. And somewhere in the middle, you'd have the difficult jazz and the fusion. But
dear. I was going to say I'd probably sit in the middle, but I wouldn't want to be bracketed in with the jazz and the fusion, to be honest.
I thought you were going to have a heart attack this morning when you were playing Charlie Mingus song.
Yeah, he plays Charles Mingus. Yeah,
this is way out on the edge for Colin. He's suffering here.
And it was quite a long one as well, wasn't it? It's about 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, all right. Well, other big bands I thought I listened to a lot of as well was. Another one was the Flaming Groovies. Do you know much about the Flaming Groovies? I mean, I played their album yesterday. Was it this morning or was it yesterday? I can't remember.
Yeah, you played their album this morning, and I really enjoyed that. And I don't know anything about them. So
No. Well, they were what they call a garage band, like the Clash are accused of being a garage band. As one reporter said, yeah, they should be left in the garage with the car still running or something like that. Which I thought was a bit harsh. But they were a garage band in the States. They were around in San Francisco in the '60s. But then one of the main members left, and they sort of went a little bit away from maybe the sort of stuff that you would like, maybe the bluesy, rockabilly, R&B sort of sound, old style R&B. But they then moved to sort of more jangly guitar, Birds, almost Beatley kind of power pop, if you like, which I've also included some in there. And I think there are a lot of bands that followed the Flaming Groovies example, if you like. Shake Some Action was a good album. That was the album I played. Do you get much call for that one, Jordan?
Yes, Shake Some Action is a legendary album now and very, very sought after. But it was lumped in with punk and new wave as well, and you're quite right. They were nowhere near the origins of that. But again, it had that energy, and it had that drive, and it had that great guitar sound that made it a bedfellow, if you like, of the new wave stuff.
Well, I've written down the Ramones, obviously, and I've written down. Well, before MC5, you got Velvet Underground. Would you call them punks, sort of original punks? Or not?
Well, no, they were all
Lou Reed and the punks. No,
they were alternative.
If you were maybe going to go further back than that, I would say something like the Sonics. It's Psycho.
Yeah, mid-60s. Yeah. Well, what about the Stooges? What about the Stooges?
The Stooges, I think, are more punk. Yeah,
that's what. Yeah, you'd probably like the Stooges then if they're American. And Iggy Pop.
Psycho it could have been released in 1977, and nobody would have known. You know, it's got
the Sonics. Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah. There were some sort of punky records, weren't there? But it was never thought of being called punk at the time. Who else around the build up to it? And I've written down again musically for me. Getting through with the Graham Parkers, I had a lot of Dave Edmunds as well, with that sort of rocky guitar sound, which sort of all led into the more the power pop side than the punk and the new wave. But I still bracket him in. Then you've got bands like the Runaways, which I think Stinks is.
I've got them on my list.
Familiar with,
list,
Television one I would have said there who were bracketed, but you couldn't really, given that his origins would be Jonathan Richman.
Exactly, that's my next one I was going to mention. We've got Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers. Yeah,
I saw Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers live in the Palace Theatre in Manchester, supported by Mink DeVille.
That's another one, Mink DeVille.
Another one on my list.
Yeah, Mink DeVille, Spanish Troll.
Well, see, so even then, back in the 70s when it was happening, stuff that was more musically astute, I went and listened to.
I thought you were maybe lost, and you had been trying to find a sort of Bartley James Harvest concert and stumbled in there, Pete, by mistake.
Yes, that's probably what it was.
I literally was asked by my housemate. He said, "Right, do you want to go and see them?" Spanish Stroll was in the charts, I think, or something by Jonathan Richman. I went, yeah.
It's free then, probably, was it? It was free.
No, of course it wasn't free.
You had to pay for it.
Yeah, of course I paid for it.
Pete's a bit mean, would you be?
No, I'm just saying he wouldn't go. He had to pay for it.
The Palace Theatre, I saw them, I saw Horseslips, and I saw Rainbow. They were the three bands that I saw at the Palace Theatre in Manchester. Those are the three.
All right. Okay, now
you couldn't get a greater difference, could you, between them three?
Before we then mention any bands or artists or songs that you've all got as the top ones for you, I think that this punk into new wave, punk sort of probably died around 77 time. Do we think, is that fair to say? As the original punks, then it all became new wave. I mean, you got like people like we said the Stranglers and the Damned earlier on. You had a band called the Boys, which were great for me, and they were more power pop. I loved them.
The charm.
Boomtown Rats, Blondie.
Boomtown Rats had kind of morphed with them, but you still had the charm. And even if you're going into like 79, 80, maybe Temple Tudor and that, some kind of
I've got so many of them listed here.
There's
so many of them.
Exploited in that, who never really went away.
But do you think that sort of guitar sound, led then into the people
Yeah,
could then play what they want to play in the 80s? I mean, even the likes of Gary Newman and maybe Depeche Mode, and then the guitar stuff. I mean, that's not so much guitar stuff, admittedly, but in the mid 80s, you got bands like Jason and the Scorchers, these sort of southern rock bands,
yeah,
sort of rocker. I don't know what you call it, southern rockabilly punk. I don't know
yeah.
what you call it, but it's great. And the Stray Cats with the rockabilly stuff. But then, do you think that new wave? Well, this is controversial, and was maybe the reason why Stinks hates it, was sort of almost the lead into a Britpop.
Oh, I
And
was just about to say that
the Lars, Stone
the
Roses,
logical step from there is the Lars, the Stone Roses, and Oasis. So
and Pulp
yeah,
and
absolutely.
Blur, and they all,
Yeah.
and Teenage Fan Club and the Verve, all really originated from the sound that was made in the late 70s, I think, maybe. I suppose a bit from the 60s as well, I don't know. But I thought Pretenders
So
is
what
another
we
one.
what we're saying here is that you can draw a line, you can draw a thread, which goes right through modern musical history. Well, that shouldn't be a surprise because the bands learn off each other. They find a sound that they like, they develop it, they grow it. If you go back to your Claptons and your Zeppelins and the people that played white blues, they played white blues because they played black blues differently, and so there's a link back there. They will all play Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters and so and the Stones. I mean, so all we're saying is that there is a thread through history which ends up until the 2000s when it all went completely to shit. And
even some of the 2000 bands as
yeah,
well.
no, but
saying that chord that runs through musical history, like the rock and roll, the Robert Johnsons, the blues, the Stones, the Beatles, whatever, the Kinks, all the way through there into the 70s, with I don't know, some of the glam stuff, and then you got the punk and the new wave and onwards Britpop. That doesn't excuse, or maybe that's not the right word. Where are Pink Floyd and Genesis and Emerson, Lake and Palmer on that? They're not really on that. They're on a separate line.
because their genesis is in jazz and classical.
So it's an alternative reality.
Nearly all of those bands that you've mentioned, they were trained classically, either in jazz or they were trained as classical musicians.
Okay,
but they wanted to play rock music, so they went down a different route, and really that kind of music does still continue because you've played loads of it. The Opeths and the Von Hertzen brothers and Dream Theater and all these, they are all part of that line, and then all the symphonic rock stuff is part of that line. But I don't think they are parallel tracks. And that's fine because they don't all have to be the same. There's a jazz track too.
And there's a classical track as well, I assume, isn't there?
Exactly.
I mean, how many tracks are there through
lots.
the musical history?
You had the odd pattern of classically trained musicians in the new wave as well. I'm thinking straight off the top of my head, Joe Jackson was classically trained pianist. Steve Naive was a classically trained pianist.
From the Attractions,
Yeah, so there was a smattering of it. It was just they went in a totally more commercial direction, you would say, rather than.
And I wouldn't dream of knocking that because ultimately, sitting here where I am, working like a dog and still chasing money at the age of 68, if I was sitting there looking at the bank balance that the Stranglers have probably got, I'd be going, well, I made the wrong decision, didn't I? But ultimately, it is what it is.
Right. Okay. Well, on my list, I've done sort of a load of influences. I've mentioned a few of them, and I've got sort of some of the bands that were inspired by all of this as well. But I've got, in terms of bands or singles, I've got like a classic punk singles that weren't hits for me, and I've got a classic punk singles that were hits. So like they made them, if you see what I mean. Some of the ones.
What I've got is I've got my new wave bands, the songs that I liked of the new wave bands, but I've just picked 2 or 3 per band, and I've done the same for the punks.
All right. And Gordon, you've got a bunch of songs, yeah?
Yep, I have. I've got.
You want to start off with some then?
Right. Okay, my number 10 was one of the most important labels, I think, for punk and new wave was Stiff Records.
Stiff Records, yeah.
You know, I was going to wear my Stiff t-shirts, but it wasn't maybe appropriate for this format. You know, if it ain't stiff, it's, you know. So there was 2 or 3 waves, Stiff Records. So you had your originals, your Ian Dury and the Blockheads, Elvis Costello, Reckless Eric, Larry Wallace on the first Stiff, Nick Lowe on the first Stiff tour as well. And then the second wave was, again, slightly different. So you had guys like Jonah Louie, Mickey Jupp, you also had Rachel Sweet, and you also had Lenny Lovitch. And my first one was a song that I first heard while listening to Magpie one night. Remember Magpie, the delectable Susan Stranks?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Poorly filled jumpers that stirred many a young man. And she played this thing and it came on and I thought, what the hell is this? This is just not music. And it was, the single was Lucky Number with that
Lucky Number by Lena Lovitch, yeah.
And I thought, this is never and by the end of it, I was singing along, loved it. So that was the quirky end of it, and punk by then was starting to, you know, maybe get away from the 3-chord thrash, and you know, there was more experimentation. That's what I liked, you know, different sounds. And the album it came from, Stateless, was one of the most consistent. I just said there wasn't many sort of consistent punk or new wave albums, but that was certainly one of them. It was a great album. So Lucky Number was my first one.
But that was a hit, wasn't it?
Was a hit, number 7 in the charts, and my number 9, I'll just throw it in at the same time.
Go on,
another Stiff artist was it wasn't even a one-hit wonder, because I don't even think this was a hit. But it's one of these songs that's now everybody knows it. There's been covers of it, and it comes on adverts and everything, and it was never troubled the charts apparently. Was Whole Wide World by Reckless Eric. Yeah. With that fantastic bass intro and that really slow build up, and then a big thumper of a drum that just kicks the whole chorus off. So that was my first 2, Stiff Records, Lucky Number, Lenny Lovitch, and Whole Wide World by Reckless Eric.
Oh, Wide World. I don't think he was a hit actually for Reckless Eric.
No. It's one of them that people just.
No, it's not a hit at all.
No.
But
cover,
I just say,
the Proclaimers.
Have I never heard of the Proclaimers?
No, that's what I'm saying. The weirdest cover of it I've ever heard was.
I haven't heard it. No, strange. You talk about Stiff Records, yeah. They were. I mean, of course, the Damned were on Stiff, and they had the first album on Stiff. In fact, with Nick Lowe producing it, and it wasn't the first single. New Rose was. It could have been about the 4th single, I think it was, on Stiff Records. Because I remember I've got in my collection somewhere, I've got the first single.
Well, and that's Stiff on my collection as well, but higher up in my charts. Yeah. So
that's Nick Lowe with So It Goes.
Yeah.
And The Other Side Heart of the City, which was a great song. I loved that more than So It Goes, actually. And Dave Edmunds covered it on one of his albums. Could have been on Get It, I think it was. And then I've also got the Pink Fairies Between the Lines, which was on Stiff. I think that was the second one. I think there was a different third one. I can't remember what it was. Could it be Rachel Sweet? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, 4th I think was New Rose. All right. Well, since I've mentioned New Rose, I'm going to mention New Rose because Stinks might have it as well. Have you?
I have.
Yeah. I think it's a great classic punk single, and generally renowned or recognised as being the first UK punk single. It predated the Sex Pistols, Anarchy in the UK. Sorry to mention them again, Pete.
Well, I remember reading an interview at the time where, when that came out, and they had heard Anarchy, but Anarchy wasn't out at the time, and they couldn't believe how slow the Sex Pistols were. And when you think about it, Anarchy is at a lot slower pace than New Rose.
New Rose, yeah, it's right in your face.
Flattening out the speakers, you know, and they thought, well, it was almost like, you know, Usain Bolt against sort of, you know, Roger Bannister. They thought they thought the faster you were, and the more sort of bombastic you were. That was it. Yeah.
Whereas, pretty much the whole album is like that. The whole album is like that, really. Damn.
We want ballads on it.
No. New Rose, yeah, I love it. And a bit of a nod to Leader of the Pack as the opening line issue, really, going out with him. Yeah, that opens the line, the song. Yeah, so I had New Rose, The Damned. What have you got then, Stinks? Whether it's a band then or a song?
I'm going to do this slightly differently because, as I say, I've chosen bands and then picked some songs that I like by the bands rather than picking out individual songs because I don't know. I haven't got this vast range of songs that I know by all these bands. So I've chosen the ones that I kind of like or vaguely like. So let's tick off The Damned. When I was playing in my band with a few. Well, I can't even remember who was in it now. Back in the day, we rehearsed in studios in Leytonstone, or it might have been Leyton, somewhere or other, and we just booked a rehearsal studios, and we went in straight after The Damned. And you've never seen such a mess in your life. Rat Scabies was not a tidy man, and that's all I'm prepared to say on the subject. Anyway,
he's a drummer, though, isn't he?
It was, yeah. We know what you say about drummers.
We know what we like about drummers, yeah.
Yeah. So I've chosen New Rose. You've said all that needs to be said. I really like their version of Eloise. So that's my favourite Damned track. So I'll throw that one in. When I was thinking about this, I thought, well, if you said to me, you've got to take a kind of traditional punky new wavy English song to a desert island, which one are you going to take? And that would be Do Anything You Want to Do by the Rods or Eddie and the Rods, whatever it is. That for me, that was the song that bridged punk and rock and was kind of, and this sounds awfully snobby, I don't mean it to, it was the acceptable face of punk music for me because it was, I thought it was more like Dr. Feelgood, and I really liked Dr. Feelgood.
Well, they were for that genre, weren't they? They were what they called, and Nick Lowe was bracketed as well with Kelly Willie and all these bands was like, pub rock. But in these pubs, but they were all based in that, like, obviously Feelgood were Canvey Islands and things like that. They didn't had that whole pub rock thing, but again, the energy and the attitude.
Yeah. And it's one, and when you say the thing about the energy, it's one of those songs where, and I've got it on my Spotify playlist. When it comes on, it does make you go, oh yeah, if I danced, which I obviously don't because I hate it, but if I did, it's the sort of thing I would dance to. So that's that. So that was the one I chose. But let's go with a band. Cole knows where this is going. For me, and I don't know whether they're punk or new wave or they're a bit of both, but I'm going to go with Tom Robinson Band. And, Power in the Darkness is, for me, one of the great albums of all time. I could choose the entire album, but if I was choosing two or three, I'd go Don't Take No for an Answer, Up Against the Wall, and Power in the Darkness. And I think, if you're talking about this being a movement which is at a point in time, then their stand on behalf of gay rights, but more importantly, their stand against Nazism, against the National Front, playing at the Victoria Park at the Rock Against Racism concert. They were brilliant live, absolutely brilliant live. And and again, without being snobby, if we're talking about great musicians, Danny Custo is an absolutely brilliant guitarist, and Dolphin was a great drummer. And Tom Robinson's a good bassist and a really good songwriter. So for me, 2468 Motorway is great. It's good fun. It's a throwaway pop song. But actually, if we're talking about punk being about anger and about social issues and about wanting to change the world and about this kind of not anarchy, but wanting things to be different, I think TRV are into the hit. So that was my first choice after Eddie and the Snot.
Okay, well, if I were to pick a Tom Robinson Band song, I probably would go for Up Against the Wall. That is an angry. It does sound very angry, and I suppose he does sound very angry in a lot of them.
Yeah, well, they are. From my
simple ears, musically, I don't know whether or not they are infinitely better than some of the other bands, like I don't know, like the Buzzcocks or the Jam.
I'm not going to make
whatever.
that value judgment, but Danny Custo would stand up as a guitarist in any band. He was a brilliant guitarist. I'm not going to talk for the rest, but Danny Custo is an absolutely brilliant guitar player.
All right, fair dues. And the Rods, as they were called for some reason on that single alone,
just on that,
not Eddie and the Hot Rods, very weird. It must be a bit annoying for them because they had so many other great songs.
Quit This Town was every bit as good as Do Anything
Quit This
You
Town
Want to
followed
Do.
it up. Yeah.
The brilliant single, and the verse in Teenage Depression, the kids
Teenage
are all
Depression. Yeah.
brilliant songs. And I hate it when I hear them described as one-hit wonders. They were so much better than that. Barry Masters, I think, sadly only died, I think, about a couple of years ago. Still wearing the white.
Yeah, Barry Masters did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as Stinks would appreciate, he had a bit of a set to at the Marquee with Johnny Rotten, didn't he? And the Sex Pistols beat him to a pulp, I think.
Anyone that does
allegedly.
that, a big fan of mine. I mean,
so they obviously were touring together, supporting one another. I don't know, maybe on the Anarchy tour. I don't know what it was, but yeah, do anything you want to do. A great single. That obviously their biggest hit, but certainly not one hit wonders, I would say. Okay, what else you got for us, Gordon?
Right, I have, as I say, the one that never gets a lot of. I've heard it crop up a couple of adverts and that, but another great seminal guitar song of the punk and new wave movement. So I'm going to go with the only ones, Another Girl, Another Planet.
Ah, yeah.
Space Travels in My Blood, which I don't know where they got that. There wasn't too many British people. Peter Perrott certainly didn't have a lot of space travel that I know at the time. But again, a great guitar-based pop. You could call it maybe a British version of Television, Marquee Moon. I always think they're sort of, bedfellows separated by the whole sort of pond. Great guitar-based song. Another Girl, Another Planet. Again, I don't think it troubled the charts particularly.
It did eventually. It's like it was a flop when it first came out.
Yeah.
It only sort of took on sort of some life quite late on, probably in the 80s when it.
Yeah.
I don't remember them having any other hits. So I mean, if you talk about one hit wonders and Eddie and Hot Rods, this is probably one of them, only ones. But the only ones, Another Girl, Another Planet, is always on a lot of these punk compilation albums, isn't it?
And the Only Ones album that came from, it just got The Only Ones, is a very, very collectible, but you never find a copy of it that has not been played to death. It's just one of them. I mean, the records in those days, especially punk albums, that they weren't bought to be, tidied away and kept for posterity. They were trapped. So it
made number 57, believe it or not, but only in 1992.
Well,
maybe it was in an advert. Maybe it was on an advert in 92.
And there was a film, a kind of flop film called That Summer, and it had a great punk new wave soundtrack. And I always remember it being the standout track on that. And even then, it didn't trouble the charts. That'd be about 81, 82-ish. So, not great song. Certainly in my top 10.
I'm just reading. It was re-released in the UK in January '92, backed with "Pretty in Pink" by the Psychedelic Furs to promote the compilation album Sound of the Suburbs. So obviously that was a punk. You've probably seen that lying around. Yeah. So that's how he got in.
They're always the same ones, but they get ever more bizarre. Some of the stuff that they stick on to the end of these compilations, stuff that could never have been described punk in a million years, but they'll jam it in there just for that time.
It's always there. All right, I'll give you one now that I'll take it that the last one was a non-hit. The New Rose didn't dent the chart whatsoever by the Damned. I'll go to a chart hit that was a hit and a top 20 hit, and it is by the Jam. I'm sure Stinks is going to mention the Jam shortly anyway. But I had to go. I love the Jam, and that's a word that you're distinctly not using tonight, Pete. I noticed on a lot of these other stuff you say, I love that and I love that. You're specifically saying, quite clearly saying, yeah, something I like that and I like this. Subtle difference, yeah?
I love Do Anything You Want to Do. and there are a couple of other songs on here which I do in fact love. When I
Down
get
in
to
the
it,
tube
I
station,
shall make sure that I use the word love.
use the right term. Down in the tube station at midnight, I had to go for it. If I'm going to pick any of them, by the Jam. Loved it when it came out. Still love it now, and it's probably my favourite Jam song. So if I'm going to have the Jam in, and I know you're quite keen on the Jam, Stinks, but
I
that's
have
the one.
Jam's greatest hits.
When You're Young is a superb song as well. But he wrote so many great songs, right? In the City.
At that period, he was on fire. Strange.
He was.
All of these singles, there was hardly a miss. I would maybe say Funeral Pyre was maybe the weakest, but that
Maybe
whole
so. Yeah.
all
All the way through, up through Eating Rifles and going underground and Start.
When You're Young. I mean, obviously David Watts wasn't his.
No.
Smithers Jones wasn't Weller's either. But just brilliant songs, time after time.
It was a good songwriter, very good songwriter.
Yeah. Well, it still is.
Yes, but I mean, in that era when this started.
Okay, so have you got who's next then? Pete, you next? Go on then.
Okay. Well, since you've talked about the Jam, I might as well throw the Jam.
Well, I know which one you're going to go for.
Well, okay. So the Jam song that I love, and the one that got me into the Jam, bearing in mind that when was that 78 probably.
79, the one I'm talking about. Down in the Tube Station was 78.
Yeah, right. Okay, so Eating Rifles. So Eating Rifles is my favourite Jam song. If I'm going to use the word love, then that's the one I love. And that in fact, basically, it was that song that made me then go back and look at the rest of the Jam stuff and think they're pretty good songwriters. And I love Down in the Tube Station at Midnight. I think that's a great song. I love Going Underground. So they're my three favourite Jam songs. But if I could only choose one, I'm going to choose Eating Rifles. And again, if you go back to this thing about the energy, then I think Eating Rifles is the one with the energy. It's that almost that kind of chanty thing, which I love. That Eating Rifles bit kind of almost sounds like it could be a football chant. So that's
you and David Cameron then.
Yeah, David Cameron's favourite song, wasn't he? At uni.
I thought his favourite song was Tangled Up in Blue.
No. Apparently he missed the irony of the subject matter of Eating Rifles and claimed it on his own.
Well, he missed the irony of most things, didn't he?
That's too busy. Paul Weller said, did he? Did you not listen to the lyrics?
Too busy greasing his forehead and other people's palms. Anyway, moving on. Gordon, what have you got?
Right. It's strangely for a punk and new wave, they've not really raised their head. So I'm going to throw in one that we've not really spoke about. I would say if you had to pick in the new wave, who was the best band, right? I think you have two contenders, right? I think the Attractions, backed up Costello, really adaptable, as I say, classically trained, great drummer, Pete Thomas, great bass player, Bruce Thomas. But I would say, and given that Costello's my main man, always has been, I would say the only other band, musicianship-wise, and I would defy even Stinky Pete to find a chink in the musicianship of this band, I would say the Blockheads were far and away the smoothest, the best, and most adaptable band of the new wave. So I'm going to go one from the New Boots and Panty album. Don't think it was I'm not sure if it was a hit. I'm sure Colin will be able to tell us. It was the album track, Sweet Jean Vincent, which was one.
It was a single. It wasn't a hit.
That was a single, definitely. Yeah.
I don't think it troubled the upper echelons.
No, it didn't trouble the upper echelons, but it was a single.
Yeah. No, I don't think it was actually a hit at all, to be honest. I remember having the single, loved it.
Fantastic start to it, and it's got that really almost jazzy, interlude, sort of intro, and then it just drifting along nice, and he's painting the picture, and
then
and just goes into this absolutely rockabilly, blow your socks off, just thing. And the band, I mean, look at the band, Chaz Jankel, great songwriter, Norman Wateroy, played on practically every hit in the 80s. Charlie Charles, Mickey Gallagher, Davy Payne, two saxophones at once. Just a fantastic, fantastic band. And that whole album's lauded. Again, I'm contradicting myself all over the place because that was certainly a very...
That was a good punk album, wasn't it?
Yeah, but hardly a bad track on it. The lyrics were so clever, inventive, make you laugh out loud. The man just could do anything. I think fame ultimately went a wee bit to his head and he became not a particularly nice man for a few years. We all... by his admission before, seeing kind of the error of his ways and calming down. But I mean, a massive talent. It's a shame that he's not the sort of older statesman, the sort of punk and new wave that he undoubtedly would have been. But as I say, I don't think you do much better than Sweet Gene Vincent.
Sweet Gene Vincent, I do love that one. And the album track's a lot longer than the single version that I got, actually, because it fades out on the single. And there's a big guitar solo on the album track when it just goes off on one, doesn't it? I know Jazzy Jeff is a big Blockheads fan. He's always saying they're great musicians. Thinks his brother, who you may have been on the podcast with recently that I don't remember, but yeah, it is New Bits and Panties, a great album. I'm not sure whether was it Partial to Abracadabra? Was that on that, or was that just a single?
I don't think it was. No, I think it was a single.
I'm not sure it was. I love that. Wake up, make love to me, and or make love with me.
Reasons to be cheerful. They just had so many really good. I don't think he ever got anywhere near that standard. The subsequent albums,
No, he didn't.
Laughter, Do It Yourself, Lord Upminster. All flashes of brilliance, and still had great singles like I Want to Be Straight or something like that, but never consistently done it.
Did, but of course, he did have a number one single after New Bits and Panties, which was Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick. But yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Ian Dury. Good choice. Right. I'm going to go Clash, and I'm not going the obvious one for the Clash. I think if you ask anybody the Clash, they'll say London Calling, being their... I'd say their biggest hit. That's not true. Actually,
their anthem. I would say their anthem,
it's not their biggest hit because Should I Stay, Should I Go, when re-released 10 years after, because on the Levi's ad, did get to number one. But I'm going for one of their early, because I love the early Clash stuff. It's it's exciting, it's rough, it's energetic, as you put it, and it isn't White Riot. It is Complete Control, which I think was their third single. In reference to their single Remote Control that they didn't actually want released as a single from CBS, and they wrote a particularly angry song. They said release Remote Control, we didn't want it on the label, blah blah blah. That's the opening line of Complete Control. Love it, always have, and it's got a great B-side as well. Joe Guitar Doors, or was that on Clash City Rockers? But see, that's another one. They had so many great songs in the early days.
I've got a Clash one in the list, but it's not one of them. So we'll
okay.
Look forward to that. Where do you stand on the Clash, Pete? You've been strangely sacked.
I'm just about to. Since I follow on from Colin, I shall now do my Clash art.
Go on then.
So the first punk album I bought was the Clash's Greatest Hits. So of the punk bands, they are my favourites. I think I like everything on the Greatest Hits album. So, and I mean, So I like. No, hang on. I like all the stuff on the Greatest Hits album.
Yeah.
The four I love are London Calling, because it's just so redolent of the Clash, but also being a Londoner, then that's just the whole thing. It kind of feels like it's a song about home. I love Should I Stay or Should I Go? But my two favourite tracks are Rock the Casbah, that was the one I loved. That was the one when I heard it the first time, I thought, yeah, this is a really great song. But my favourite is A-Bomb on Wardour Street. So that's the...
that was the jam.
That's the jam.
No, you're right. It's not that one.
You've got it down on your next list. Yeah.
It's on the next list. Yeah, sorry, you're absolutely right. Yeah, forget what I just said. Now, what was the other song I was going to do?
That is a great song.
It is a great song. What was the other one I was going to do?
I never even knew Strummer Jones. wrote it.
You do like White Riot, I seem to remember.
White Riot, that's it. Yeah.
It's White Riot, yeah.
I didn't write it down.
White Riot before, yeah.
I've got A-Bomb on Wardour Street written at the side of the paper, and it's kind of between the Clash and the Jam, and I got the wrong band. So I'm not a punk expert, so you can forgive me for that. So
A-Bomb is a good song. A-Bomb by the Jam is a good song as well.
It is, but I'll go with Rock the Casbah as my favourite.
Rock the Casbah, okay.
Yeah. That's Topper's finest moment, Andy's retirement fund, I would imagine as well. Everybody just assumed they were Strummer Jones, but I think Rock the Casbah was Topper, and Should I Stay and Should I Go was supposedly Mick's lament to his girlfriend at the time, Ellen Foley, who obviously is better known as the backing singer on Bat Out of Hell and Paradise with the Dashboard Light. Mm-hmm. He was having trouble at the time, so two brilliant songs, and I'm glad to see them having a wee retirement sort of fund and a wee pension pot for Topper with that.
Some and Jones get credit as well, don't they?
He did write Rock the Casbah, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, the three of them did. The three of them did.
Very highly rated musician drummer as well, apparently for other sort of drummers, you know.
But I think, if you forced me to listen to a punk album right the way through from front to back that wasn't a greatest hits, then I'd probably choose The Clash.
What, the album, The Clash?
Well, no, I would probably choose a Clash album. I don't know the albums because I don't own. I know the songs and I've got the greatest hits. I don't know what the albums are, but
the album London Rollins is really, really, really good. For it being 4 sides, there's hardly any filler on it as well.
No, it's the double, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a double album. Yeah, Topper Headon did pretty much write the melody. Strummer, I'm reading, was not impressed by the page of suggested lyrics that Headon gave him. According to Clash Guitar Technician, they were a soppy set of lyrics about how much he missed his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Strummer just took one look at these words and said, "How incredibly interesting." Screwed the piece of paper into a ball and chucked it backwards over his head. So maybe it had something to do with some more lyrics to the song. But okay. So the Clash, London Calling.
We'll continue on the Clash theme then for my next one. Because
what have you got?
That Pete named 4 and you named about 3, and none of yous picked my one, which it's also Elvis Costello's favourite Clash song. Is anybody what hazard a guess?
Early Clash or later Clash?
I would say it's not quite early, but it's not quite late. Mid period.
So we're talking London Calling album then, probably.
No, just before that. So I'm going to go with White Man and Hammersmith Pally.
Yeah, cool.
Good song.
Yeah,
that's
which
popular one.
Great song.
The police famously got tons and tons of abuse for sort of their white chord reggae sort of influences running at that time, but there was, there's a reggae elements in it. There's no way you could call it a reggae song, but
it is.
And it's a great story. I know, him going to that all nighter, Dillinger, Delroy Wilson, Smooth Liberator. Just a great story. Being ironically feeling sort of alienated, if you like, in Hammersmith Pally at this reggae concert, but it's got that great feel about it, for the sort of the sort of intro. Just as I say, I don't think they ever really bettered it.
For me, I like that song. I could easily have chosen that, but for me, because I went to so many gigs at Hammersmith Odeon, then the whole Hammersmith thing is such an important part of my music life. So that is a song which I love because of the association with Hammersmith. The same as I like Motorhead's, No Sleep Till Hammersmith, because it's Hammersmith.
Well, it seems to be it's a great name to put in songs. I could never imagine White Man in Glasgow Apollo or Edinburgh. The Hammersmith for some reason just seems to,
it flows. It flows in a way that Glasgow Apollo doesn't.
Strummer doesn't actually sing White Man in Hammersmith Pally at all, does he? In the song,
he does on the outro. White Man and Hammersmith Pally.
Does he though? I don't know whether that's whether that's the case. I know it sounds like that, but I'm going to check that out.
I think what we can absolutely categorically say is that no one's going to sing a song about the bloody O2 Arena.
No. Hopefully.
Maybe not. Okay. Or the Chelmsford Civic Theatre, probably.
Or Cambridge Corn Exchange.
Cambridge Corn Exchange, yeah. Been there, actually. Quite like the Corn Exchange.
Yeah, it's great.
Seen that South London's finest there, actually.
You're not going to sing a song about it, though.
No.
Anyway, what you got then, Cole?
I'm just looking at White Man Hammer's Palais. You've got Ken Booth for UK pop reggae. Basically, he's not complimentary about that, was he?
Well, he actually says in verse 9, I'm the white man in the Palais, just looking for fun, only looking for fun. So he doesn't squeeze Hammersmith in.
White man in the Palais. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah, it's not
Palais.
Quite Hammersmith Palais. But anyway, yeah, good. It's a great song. Now, I'm going to throw this in. We can just mention 4 words and probably not say any more about it. But if you're going to have a list of punk singles, I had to go God Save the Queen. Do we need to say any more?
No, I think you can take...
I'm a Republican, so, whatever you like.
Should have been number 1, of course, burning up for Rod Stewart, getting fiddled to get on to get to number 1 in the chart. Because it outsold everything else by a million miles that particular week in Jubilee week, and it should have made it, but it didn't. But yeah, it's
one of that great triumvirate, isn't it? Sort of Anarchy, God Save the Queen, Holidays in the Sun. Yeah, and Pretty Vacant.
Yeah, the 4 of them. Well, that's pretty much their only four singles they made, wasn't it? But they're all gems. Particularly the first 3. I'm not so keen on Holidays in the Sun, actually, but
Doesn't he seem to get the press that the other 3 does?
No. Well, God Save the Queen and Pretty Vacant were like in the same week, really. God Save the Queen was still at 2, I think. Pretty Vacant, and then started coming in the chart, didn't it? And Top of the Pops lifted their ban and had their video of them performing it and stuff. But nothing else after that, definitely. But yeah, God Save the Queen. Not gonna. The B-side is great, which Stinks hates because I played it this morning on the radio show. Did You Know Wrong? I think it's superb.
You're causing that man actual pain now. I think you need to ease his burden by stop talking about the Sex Pistols, even though.
Yeah, well, that's right. I'm not saying any more about him because he's probably going to walk off. So are we back to Pete or are we on Gordon now? We're on to.
Oh, we're back to me.
Whichever one, yeah, Pete. Go on.
So let's talk about a sensible musician with an absolutely fantastic backing band. So let's go Elvis Costello.
Okay.
I much prefer early Costello to late Costello. I saw Elvis Costello at the Crystal Palace Garden Party supporting Southside Johnny and the Asbury Dukes and Santana, which was a strange lineup. But that was very early doors. I think it was his first big show he'd ever done, and it showed because he was clearly nervous. But you could tell that there was a real talent in there, and you could tell that he was a poet and that he really cared about what he was doing. And I've got the Elvis Costello Greatest Hits, which is a double album and has got all of the stuff on. And I remember when we did the Elvis Costello program, which we all did together. Gordon, you talked about a lot of the stuff that's on there on the second album. I've gone with some of the early stuff, early-ish. So I've picked Watching the Detectives, which was the first one of his, which I really loved. I thought this is a really great song. And then I Don't Want to Go to Chelsea, which for very many reasons, why would you want to? But then the other one that I really love, and if we're talking about, energy and all the rest of it, Pump It Up, which I think if I could only choose one of the 3, I'd probably go Watching the Detectives. But I love all 3. I like a lot of his stuff, but they're the 3 I would choose.
Which ironically is the only one that doesn't really feature the attractions because they don't play in it.
Which one?
Watching the Detectives.
Oh yeah.
Because I think they got formed the week after, but it was actually the Rumours rhythm section.
Right. Okay.
Because they were seasoned musicians and he didn't have a band.
No.
Then obviously the first album was Huey Lewis's band that played on My Aim Is True. Clover. I think Clover they were known it as then, and they were in the process of forming the attractions, and then they wrote that and done it and got it out. But fantastic bass line.
Now, when I think about it, when did they form?
That would be 77.
Right. So I saw them at Crystal Palace, I think in July or August 77.
Yeah.
So I think I don't remember whether it was Elvis Costello in the attractions or Elvis Costello.
Yeah, I
don't remember. It was obviously when My Aim Is True had not long been out, and it was funny because he was getting belters off people like Tony Blackburn saying, there's this bloke here who thinks he's a star and all the rest of it. And actually, and I'm a massive Santana fan. I obviously went to see Santana. Southside Johnny were brilliant as well. But he was really good. And I kind of thought, now this guy's got a bit of the Bob Dylan about him. He's got a bit of, he just was obviously a talent, and you could tell. And wasn't any then surprise that by the 80s he was, right up there as one of the real stars of the British music scene.
It's funny you mention that, Pete, because it's forgotten now that he got quite a wee bit of kickback for daring to call himself Elvis. Well, the original Elvis was still sort of going then, and I do remember people at Blackburn and that saying, who does this guy think he is? And then it was only a couple of years later that I remember somebody getting pushed who had called himself Elton Motello. So you can see how that just carried on then. And then if Elton Motello would have been a big star, he might have had somebody.
The good news for Elvis Costello was that the pub singer was dead by the end of 1977, so he had a clear Elvis field in front of him then. But, So anyway,
great.
I threw in.
All right, okay. I've got another hit. Or shall I go for one now? Is it me? Yeah, I'm going to go for it anyway.
Sure.
This was a hit. Their biggest hit, actually. Probably not my favourite song of theirs, but I've gone for it because it's quite an obvious punk single. From your neck of the woods, Gordon. From, I think, Dunfermline rings a bell.
Yeah, Dunfermline, just the stone's throw for here. The old Skids.
And obviously Into the Valley was just their big hit. It's such a great riff from Stuart Adamson. And can never understand a word they're singing about, to be honest. It's not that easy, Richard Jobson, hearing what he's singing about, and not just that song, but other songs as well, like Stay and Live, or that's on, what's that on? Night and Day, I think it was. But no, they had some other great songs. I mean, one before their first single, actually, it was before they signed for, what label are they on? Is it Chrysalis? Can't remember now.
No, they're on Chrysalis.
Can't remember which label Skids went on to.
They always had their own labels on. That was.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, but their first single, it's like an EP. Was Charles. Charles was on an EP thing, and it was included on their first album, and that was on, in my best Scottish accent, No Bad Records.
No Bad Records.
No Bad Records. I mean,
they're strange for me because they were a huge band up here. So practically everything that they released was a hit in Scotland. So, Into the Valley, obviously, Working for the Yankee Dollar, Circus Games, Masquerade, all of them.
Masquerade, yeah. Open Sound was the one that came out just before, I think, Into the Valley. Charles wasn't a hit. But yeah, Circus Games, and then they mellowed a little bit, didn't they, with their Absolute Game album? Well, Circus Games on that. I think Circus Games on that, but The Woman in Winter and other such songs.
He was getting quite after me then before he went off to be a film director and things like that.
All right. Well, now, did you have any Skids in your list then, or not bother?
No, I didn't. I mean, I really liked them, and Days in Europa was a great album, and obviously,
agreed. I think my favourite album of theirs actually. Better than their debut.
Do you have the yellow cover version of which was withdrawn because of its so-called natural?
The yellow cover version of Days in Europa, yeah.
That was quite quickly withdrawn and replaced with a sort of more benign sort of fake 30s type sort of black cover, but it was because it was sort of had the sort of '36 Olympics sort of vibe
Yes.
to it. And
maybe it's worth something. Is that worth something? My yellow sleeve album.
particularly, no, there's quite a few of them kicking about up here. So.
All right. Oh no, never mind. Oh, well, I was going to say go in my retirement fund, but a bit late for that. A bit late. But no, I'm going to throw another Scottish band in just while we're in Scotland, and this sort of Scottish equivalent of, well, maybe they came before them, did they? Ooh, from Edinburgh, I think.
Yeah.
Fife, etc. The Rosillos.
The Rosillos. Do you know why she was called?
I knew you were going to say the Rosillos.
The Rosillos, and was it the B-52s? Like they're like the B-52s, almost.
Yeah,
like
I think they preceded them.
Funny, comical. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you know why she was called Fae Fife?
Tell me.
Because she was Fae Fife.
From Fife. Very good.
Okay.
Fife.
It's
extremely Scottish.
I'm Fae Bonnybridge, so she's Fae Fife.
Okay. And was it Eugene Reynolds in Rosillos as well?
And the man who wrote all the songs went on
Joe
to
Callis.
Yeah, Boots for Dancing, and then Human League.
Who went on to Human League? You're right. Did he write "Don't You Want Me"? Then he presumably did.
He wrote most of the big hits for the Human League.
Yeah, I think he did. I either co-wrote it with Phil Oakey. I don't know, but yeah, I've got it down. And I look because I've got one of my. I think I'd probably have to have because Top of the Pops was their big hit, but I loved their the one before, which wasn't a hit. It was a double A side. It's Flying Saucer Attack, and My Baby Does Good Sculptures. Just love that one. I think they were both incorporated onto their debut album, which was superbly called Can't Stand the Rosillos. I love that title of the album. They didn't really do much else, though, did they?
Where's the Boy for Me? Somebody's going to get their head kicked in tonight.
Yeah, that's it. There's some great covers on there as well, didn't they? Hungry for Love. And Glad All Over.
Someone's going to get their head kicked in tonight is about a night out on Sucky Hall Street, is it?
Probably so, yeah.
Any main street in Scotland at that time would have been fairly
probably so. So, yeah, I probably have Good Sculptures. They went on to form the Rovillos, at least two of them did. Yeah. And they had a minor hit with Motorbike Beat and a couple of others. I've got loads of singles by the Rovillos, actually. And they had a decent album called Rev Up, their debut album. But anyway, the Rosillos, another Scottish band for you there. Excellent. Gordon. Make you feel at home, that was.
Yep. No, excellent. Can't really fault any of them.
No.
Right, so that'll be me now. I would like to go for one of my long-time favourites, a man who, as I say, really talented musician, very adaptable. Slightly, once he was done with the new wave genre, went in sort of more jazzy lean-ins and sort of lounge sort of stuff and kind of lost me. Really wasn't for me. But the first 2-3 albums that he done, Joe Jackson, were still to this day I'll play them, maybe once a month, especially the first and the second one. I'm the Man, the second one, really very consistent. But his big hit, and I'm going to go for the hit because it was absolutely groundbreaking at the time. Nobody had heard anything like it, really. And to this day, even my son, who's like 32, thinks it's one of the greatest songs he's ever heard. So unsurprisingly, going to go with Is She Really Going Out with Him? With that fantastic bass line.
Absolutely brilliant song.
Again, and I remember him getting quite a wee bit of grief at the time for the subject matter, especially the opening line, Pretty Women Walking with Gorillas Down Our Street.
Yeah, what's all that about?
Well, they tried to say there was a racist
element. It's ridiculous, doesn't it?
Anybody who had ever lost a girl to a really big, sort of hairy macho guy who would just slap you about knows exactly what Joe Jackson was talking about. If you were kind of sort of peely-wally, as we call it, peely-wally, slight of stature, 5'6", and there was this big hairy guys with medallions or and vests. That was the Gorillas he was talking about, and everybody knew them. They were there in pubs, they were there, bus stops, wherever you went. And I thought that was just lazy, sort of looking for something like that. But it's a great song, really stood the test of time. If it still comes on to this day, you just stop what you're doing and just listen to that. And he done a really, really great. I've seen him a couple of times live in Glasgow at that time, and he used to do. I think he obviously within 2 or 3 years got really sick of playing it all the time.
I'm sure, yeah.
So he'd done a mesmerising a cappella version that you can hear on the Joe Jackson live album, and it's just hand claps, and you just hear the brilliant melody of the song because there's no music on it, It's just all hand claps and singing and 4-part harmonies, and it's really, really great one to try and track them. So is she really going out with him?
Good. That's a great song. I think we're all agreed on that's a great song.
Absolutely, it is a great
It wasn't
song.
his biggest hit, though, funnily enough, was it? It had,
no, it was Different for Girls.
And that, Different for Girls is top 10.
But Different for Girls is also a really good song. I mean, he's just a really good songwriter. Those, as you say, those. I mean, I don't have either of them, but those first two albums were brilliant.
Really were. And Stepping Out was probably his biggest one, which I like least of any singles.
Yeah. That's probably when
you think again, it's a good song.
I think
when you compare it with the output of a lot of other people, then
and other stuff that was around in 1983. Yeah, it's probably a lot better. Right. Okay. Let's. How long we got? Yeah. Let's whiz through a few more. Have you got a few more then, Pete?
Well, I've got 2 more bands, and then I've got 3 which I'm going to do all at once because I've got 3 kind of punky ones. So
yeah, go on then.
So 3 more goes round, and I'll be done, except for the Americans 3 outs at the end. Okay, so I'm going to go with a guy that I saw with his very, very excellent band live twice in '76 and '77 at the University of Hull, where I was at, and that is Graham Parker and the Rumour, who were absolutely fantastic live. They were brilliant, and I have chosen Heat Treatment, Don't Ask Me Questions, and Hold Back the Night, all of which I love. If I had to choose one, I'd probably choose Don't Ask Me Questions, but very, very difficult to split. There was just, you talked about energy, Gordon, and there was an energy. The Hull University refectory had got a very, very low roof, and it held all the sound in because literally the stage was 1.5 feet higher than the people were standing, and by the time they were on the stage, anybody over 6 foot had got their head on the roof. So the sound was loud. But they were fantastic live. They really were, and all 3 of those songs are terrific.
I'm saying that before here. It's the biggest musical regret in my life that when I finally got to see him, he had disbanded the Rumour.
Really?
6 months before it, and it was all crappy American session musicians. There wasn't a horn in sight, and the Parkerella. I don't know if you have a copy of it, Pete, but it's the great live album. If you were at that concert, the Parkerella would be the perfect document. Just the band, it's swinging all the way through it, and all the versions a lot faster than on the original album. So they're great. Love it to death.
No, I think you've got me one of them. I think I've got Heat Treatment, but I can't. And so is it Howling Wind? No, maybe I've got Howling Wind.
Howling Wind's the first one. Heat Treatment second.
I think I've got
the Parkerella. The Parkerella is just fantastic.
All right, well, if you find me a copy, let me know. So anyway, Graham Parker, good one.
Excellent, great choice.
Okie dokie. And okay, I'm going to go. Well, probably. I always say, along with She Loves You, actually, way back in the 60s, 2 minutes, 20 seconds, probably one of the greatest records, I think, ever, from Northern Ireland.
Okay. Yeah.
What's that one?
You know what it's going to be.
On a certain DJ's headstone?
Yes, it's on a certain DJ's headstone. Teenage Kicks, The Undertones. Love it. He loved it. I love it. And it's such a great song. Again, they had other songs that they weren't as good as Teenage Kicks, but Get Over You followed it up, didn't it? Jimmy, My Perfect Cousin.
The whole of the first album,
First album was just like, the Teenage Kicks, basically. That wasn't on the original copy of the album, funny enough.
No.
Nor was the second single Get Over You, but the whole album was Jimmy was on there. I think that was the only single. Here Comes the Summer was released after as well. But the whole album was like that, and I just love that album. The Undertones debut album called The Undertones.
Probably the best
Fergal Sharkey's a good guy. He's the one taking on Ofwat and the water industry.
He is nowadays, yeah, on Twitter.
Absolutely giving him a slapping. So I follow him on Twitter, and he's one of the good guys.
He's a top guy, and to come to the background and go to where he has, fantastic.
Yeah, not so keen on his solo stuff so much, to be honest. I don't know. I don't know. I like his voice with the band. But anyway, Teenage Kicks. Gordon.
Right, I'm going to go a wee bit post-punk here because I feel we've very much stayed in the 70s, sort of British sort of punk and new wave. But I remember hearing this single, and every year it was a ritual. You would listen out for John Peel's Festive 50, and we would tape it. And I didn't always get to hear it. And I remember him playing this one. I think it would be around about 79, maybe even 80. And this bass started thundering out of the radio. And I thought, what the hell is that? That's just one of the best things I've ever heard. And it was an American band, Mr. Jello Biafra's band, the Dead Kennedys. And it was a little ditty called Holidays in Cambodia.
Holidays in Cambodia, yeah.
Which, again, I'd never troubled the British charts to any degree, but the lyrics in it to this day are still astounding. You work harder with a gun in your back for a bowl of rice a day. And it all had this claustrophobic sort of rifle in the back of the head sort of feel to it, which they were. And just this rant against the smugness of American youth, to parade your snaz on your $5,000 stereo. So it was this whole rebellion against the sort of smug American sort of youth of the day. And again, just a brilliant song that's lasted the test of time. I'm not sure it's one that you'll know, Pete. Maybe you
Yes,
do.
no, not only do I know it, I also like it, and the Dead Kennedys is one of my favourite band names ever.
Yes,
it's brilliant.
Whoever the Dead Kennedys.
There was no focus group involved in that, was there?
No,
that was a bunch of people sitting around going, "What can we do to really offend America? Let's call ourselves the Dead Kennedys." Great idea. And
there's a lot of them. There are probably more members in that band than Earth, Wind and Fire, I would have thought.
I wouldn't know. I don't know them well enough, but I do know that song and I do like it. Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay. Right, Gordon, do you want to carry on? You got another, one or two?
Another one. Again, we mentioned them right at the start as a sort of seminal influence on the punk scene over here, and you really could have picked any of the first 2 or 3 albums, any of the singles off it. So I was struggling between I Want to Sniff Some Glue, Sheena as a Punk Rocker, Rockaway Beach.
Love Rockaway Beach.
So, strangely enough, I should get my powder dry. That is the one I've picked.
Rockaway Beach.
Rockaway Beach. And it just sums up. I mean, they were never the most inventive band. They found a sound really early on, about 1974, 75, I think they formed, late 74, 75. And they pretty much stuck with it, But there was still, who else was bringing out songs called Beat on the Brat with a baseball bat?
Baseball bat, yeah.
Yeah, it was just, you were just shocked at how good they were. I want to be sedated.
And they never changed, did they? They never changed. I just love them. I always say that probably the least pretentious band ever.
Yeah. And then I love that they even admitted to going, hey, let's go, that they stole for the Bay City Rollers introduction
to the Night thing, wasn't it?
Night, S-A-T-U-R. So, kudos to them. And when everybody else was running a million miles for the Bay City Rollers, I said, no, I loved that bit. We stole that bit and put it in.
Yeah.
I've read countless sort of books on them. Apparently, the guitarist, Johnny, was a complete horror. Joey, much maligned, sort of poor bugger, I had to put up with him. And then obviously the endlessly revolving sort of drummers that they had. They always remember that line in Spinal Tap that the drummer died choking on vomit. Unfortunately, it wasn't his vomit. I think they lost quite a few drummers along the way. I think they just wore them out and then they died, really, because the speed was perfect.
Love the Ramones. Always love the Ramones. If I were going to go for a Ramones song, I think I'd probably have to go for Blitzkrieg Bop, actually. The Hey Ho, Let's Go. It's just sort of so Ramones. But Rockaway Beach. I think Rocket to Russia by the time they got to Road to Ruin, they actually seemed to be playing their instruments a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think they were learning. I think they always said that.
There's even a guitar solo in one song, I seem to remember.
Well,
Don't come close, wasn't there? Whether or not Johnny Ramone is actually playing it is another matter. But
that was the
and you know how the Ramones got their names? Whichever drummer they got, though, they always seem to be called Ramone. It's funny, though, isn't it? It's coincidence.
It was a huge family. The strange thing for me is that I finally got one of their albums that I've been looking for ages, one of their last ones, and I looked it up in Discogs, and because it was obviously for the time where we were already well into CD territory, it's absolutely worth a fortune. So it's hold on, and the name of it, because I couldn't even remember.
Not the last one, is it? The last one?
It's called Mondo Bizarro.
Mondo Bizarro, yeah.
Yeah, 1992. And if you have, I don't know if this will even come up on it, I might know. No, so my Discogs there. An average copy is £85 and a good copy is 129. So
I've probably got that somewhere, actually.
Well, that's your pension pot there, Colin.
That'll buy you 2 games at Spurs.
Yeah. That'll get you
85. Well, since Gordon's mentioned the Ramones, I'll check, because I've got the Ramones on my America list as opposed to my England list, and I chose Blitzkrieg Bop and Sheena and Rockaway Beach. I love all of them. I think on a different day I would choose Blitzkrieg Bop, and the other day I'd choose Rockaway Beach. I think they're difficult to split, and I agree with you. The whole, doing what the Rollers did, I just think it's hilarious. And I just think what I liked about them was they just play with their tongues in their cheeks. I think they didn't take it seriously, which is why I think I like them, because they didn't have this kind of I want to change the world and all the rest of it, which is fine at its place. But I just thought they were a good pop.
And I remember. So I was just going to say that I was in America 2 years ago, and I was on the taxi on the way back to the airport, and for some reason I just imagined Rockaway Beach was a mythical place.
No, it's not, is it?
I feel like it's a place.
It exists, and I've seen the turn off. I've seen the turn off for Rockaway Beach, and if we only wanted to catch a flight, if it would just been out, I would have went to Rockaway Beach. But it's there, and that was a highlight in my. And I shouted excitedly to my wife, "That's Rockaway Beach!"
Wasn't there a plane crash that a few years back that actually crashed in very close to Rockaway Beach? I seem to remember.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember what that was. I'm sure there was one though.
I'm sure you'll do your research.
I probably will do at some point. Yeah, but yeah, I love the Ramones. Kind of, but then their biggest hit was, Baby, I Love You.
I Love You.
The Phil Spector song.
And the great story for that is apparently, I can't remember what one it was, Dee or somebody had phoned his mother was crying, and she asked him what was wrong. He says that Phil Spector had spent 8 hours on the opening chords. I wouldn't let anybody leave the studio. I had them all in with a gun or something like that.
Gunpoint, something like
that's right. No, I've heard that story.
I heard that none of them wanted to play on it. In fact, on the record, maybe only Joey is on it. I don't know how true that is, but
minimal.
But they had a top 10 hit. Isn't that always the way?
Yeah, so sorry, because I'd mentioned the Ramones, I threw that on the end of what Gordon said. So it's your turn next, Cole, and then I'll do mine.
Is it? Okay. Right, I mentioned the Buzzcocks. Love the Buzzcocks, and I love Pete Shelley and his songwriting, the sort of punk love song that he wrote, the laments he used to write. Biggest hit, of course, Ever Fallen in Love with Someone You Shouldn't Have. But other What Do I Get is probably up there as one of my favourites as well. What Do I Get? No Love. What Do I Get? No Sleep at Night.
Only the singles album there's not a bad one, all the way from Orgasm Addict all the way through to
very early on that was, wasn't it? Yeah. And Love You More, and one particular one I love on the A Different Kind of Tension, which wasn't a hit, probably the first one that wasn't, was called You Say You Don't Love Me. I think it's just a great sort of love song in a punk way, in a typical Pete Shelley way. So I'd probably have to pick that. But Ever Fall in Love was their massive hit, of course. And have we got many more?
I've got one
left,
band, and then I've got four singles from another three bands, which I'll chuck
you might as well just give them all, and then we'll go with Gordon's last bit.
I can't have a conversation about new wave / punk without talking about the Stranglers, because for me they were. Well, be careful what I say here. I think musically they were the most talented, and of the punks. I'm not talking about new wave. I'm talking about the punks. And I think I love No More Heroes. I think it's a great song. I really like Peaches. I like that. I think I love the lyrics. It's funny. It's kind of just like it's kind of just boys being boys, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek humor. But much later, or I don't know how much later on, I think Golden Brown is just a really, really good pop rock song. It's not punk at all. It's them, quote unquote, coming of age, doing whatever it is they became. I think of all of those bands that started at the same time, the Stranglers were the ones who moved furthest away from what they had been at the start. And a lot of people who were Stranglers fans hated that. But because I didn't like that music in the first place, I then started to listen to the old stuff as a result of getting into Golden Brown, and then thought, actually, they've done a lot of good songs. And if there's a Stranglers Greatest Hits album, I will probably try and find.
Oh, there is definitely one. There's one called Peaches. There's one called Peaches, the very best of the Stranglers, actually.
And there's a Stranglers Singles album, which I have a copy of as well. But I hope you didn't get into Golden Brown, because that was quite clearly a reference to heroin.
Quite clearly, but it is a good song.
Oh, I thought it was sugar.
What heroin would do to you, Pete? I would
Listen. If my choice was listening to Queen, Kate Bush, and the Sex Pistols, I'd be stabbing heroin in my eyeballs. Right. Okay. So I couldn't know. So I'm just going to throw in my punk ones now. If you talk about a proper punk band where there was a couple of songs which I absolutely loved, it's Sham 69. And if the Kids Are United and Hersham Boys, I think are both great pub rock.
Nursery rhymes.
Pub, yeah. And then Hurry Up Harry was just a bit of a joke, but I really like the Kids Are United. It's just got a real football chant, stompy South London, lager on a Saturday night feel about it, and I think it's a great song. I really like Happy House, Susie and the Banshees.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a massive Susie and the Banshees fan, but I thought that I think that's a really, really good song. And I'm also not really a big Boomtown Rats fan, but I really like Rat Trap. So if I had to choose, I did choose that one. So the Kids Are United, Hersham Boys, Happy House, and Rat Trap. So that is the rest of my punky thing. I've got a couple of American things which I'll just throw in when we're closing out.
Well, I'd have Rat Trap in. It's one of those songs I said before. I didn't really like. I love the sort of quick Boomtown Rat stuff. Looking After Number One, Mary the Fourth one I really loved. She's So Modern. All came out before Rat Trap, and then that was released, and I just didn't get it. And then it was played incessantly on Radio 1, much to Tony Blackburn's annoyance. And you get yourself listening. Now I sing the lyrics to it all. There's a lot of words to Rat Trap, but I love Rat Trap. And I love also I Don't Like Mondays.
It's a great album.
Tonic for the Troops is superb. Absolutely. And not, as Pete was saying, not a duff track on it.
Not a duff track on it, yeah.
And as you say, new wave punk albums weren't so good. That is one of them that is a tonic for the troops. So I'd have Rat Trap in there. Gordon, you could wrap up with some of the ones you've got left, or
I don't have too many left. I would say, and again, they're more new wave, but they were their early stuff was certainly just at the tail end of punk. I would say we've not heard their name once tonight. Great singles band again. I would say Squeeze.
Yeah.
So obviously the Cool for Cats. I would probably go Up the Junction as my favourite one.
Yeah, my favourite as well.
Yeah, fantastic one. The other one, they were another American band, again a wee bit more obscure, label mates of Jonathan Richman and Roadrunner, who done the first version of a song that's been covered by everybody for the 60s all the way down to Tiffany's, would be the Rubinoos or the Rubinos.
The Rubinoos, okay, yeah.
Rubinoos, whatever, what, tomato, I don't know the definitive pronunciation of it yet. And their version of I Think We're Alone Now, again covered by Lenny Levitch on the Stateless album. But theirs is still the favourite poppy sort of version that when I think of the song, that's the one that I go to. So again, they were more underground. They were that whole Bearsville, which I think was set up by Albert Grossman, I believe, Bearsville Records, Bob Dylan's manager. Yeah, and had Todd Rundgren on them for a wee while. Great label. And I would say that's one of the ones I think is a missed classic would be the Rubinoos version of I Think We're Alone Now. So if you get a chance, spin that, Colin, I think you'll like it.
Well, yeah, I know. I've heard of the Rubinoos. That's how I pronounce it anyway. I didn't know they did I Think We're Alone Now. Now, obviously, I've got Tiffany in my mind at the moment.
Yeah, try and get that shopping mall sort of video in your mind. But the first album,
I'll check out the Rubinoos. Yeah,
it's really good punk, sort of new wave-ish, that whole American Roadrunner quirky pop sort of thing. Great.
Okay, any more?
Last two.
That's it.
Yeah, well, I've got loads of others, but they've all been talked about. Marky Moon, I think we talked about again.
Yeah.
Album, television, Personality Crisis with the Dolls.
Prove it.
Yeah, Personality Crisis with the New York Dolls. They could have had
good song. Yeah,
that first album is brilliant. So It Goes, Nick Lowe, we spoke about earlier as well.
Yeah, stiff single.
And that's pretty much I think we've discussed every other one. Spanish Stroll I had, Shake Some Action I had, Roadrunner I had, but we've touched on all of them.
Yeah, okay. Well, singles that I could mention really should deserve a mention for mine. It's the Heartbreakers. I love their only album, LAMF. That's another great album, actually. Great punk album. I've gone for Born to Lose. Chinese Rocks is on that album, which is co-written with Dee Dee Ramone, I think it is. What other ones were there? The big the Members, Sound of the Suburbs, a great punk single.
Nicky Tesco,
Nicky Tesco. He passed away fairly recently as well.
Yeah.
Sadly. Top of the Pops, Rosillos, Jilted John.
No, I'm not having that.
You're not having Jilted John in there.
No, because the chorus was the bane of my life for about 2 or 3 years.
I'm sure, yeah, okay, fair enough.
So
I didn't know your name was John Gordon.
That's in room 101, I'm afraid. That's no making.
I've got Harry Up Harry, Hong Kong Garden, London Lady I've got from the Stranglers, Swords of a Thousand Men, Tenpole Tudor.
I can't stand that song. I don't like Tenpole Tudor, so...
I've got Picture This. Oh, the adverts. Gary Gilmore's Eyes.
Good song.
Another punk single. And any others?
Nobody's mentioned Blondie in any way, shape, or form.
Didn't like Blondie.
No, I said it's funny that nobody's mentioned one. And
I maybe half mentioned Blondie when you talk about CBGBs. I thought, Blondie might be in there, but I loved Denis when it came out. But Picture This, I think, is my favourite of theirs. And that probably leads us to.
Shall I do my?
No one's mentioned the Police.
I've got. Nah.
The Police.
The Police. I have the same problem with the Police as I do with the Stranglers. Right. Sorry, Pete, for this, but I think they hitched their wagon to the punk new wave sort of star and got it.
I agree.
And then as soon as it was, feasible or commercially viable, they just went in the direction. And I mean, look at the musicians in the Police. Andy Summers had played, Zoot Money in the 60s. Stuart Copeland was a session drummer, fantastic drummer. Dave Greenfield, is it? Or
Dave Greenfield in the Stranglers.
Yeah, what was it? Yeah, Dave Greenfield. Again, he was obviously an accomplishment. So none of these guys were, to me, that wasn't their genre or their love.
I agree. Yeah. But
I think it was
because
they convenience, and then they went as soon as they could.
You could maybe also say that about Susie and the Banshees, that went more sort of gothy, didn't they? I mean, and another one, of course, you could say completely changed when Pete mentioned they changed their style completely, the Stranglers, more than any other. The Damned. I mean, Eloise.
See, I would think the Damned and Susie were. I mean, their heart was in it. They were trailblazers, and but there's got to be a natural progression, and I think bands progressed in the ways that I could see that. The other two
goes back to what we were saying at the start, doesn't it? Is that progression thing?
The progression. And
I was going to say, I'm just going to throw in a couple of others.
Go on then, quickly then.
We've talked about the Ramones. I mentioned MC5 at the beginning, but I don't think you can talk about punk and new wave without talking about the influence of Kick Out the Jams. We talked about the Runaways, and I've obviously got Cherry Bomb on my list. But then the other two that I've got are Devo. So I like the Devo. Satisfaction, which we talked about when we did the covers thing. But I think their first album in particular was pretty groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And then the other one I've got from one of my favouriteest bands of all is White Punks on Dope by the Tubes, which doesn't come more punk than having punk in the title, does it?
I was disappointed you never went for Love Comes in Spurts.
You've got me.
Richard Hell. Is that Richard Hell?
Yeah.
That's a good song, actually. It's a good song. It's a good song. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've run out of time, haven't we? We've run out of time. We've had like an hour and 3/4. So yeah, I think we better. And we've had so many mentioned. I had more. Normally, there's a lot of research, songs, chart positions, and producers, and all this sort of stuff. Well, with this, I just have an absolute bucket load of songs that I love.
Same.
And trying to narrow it down into various, and we try to get as many as. Haven't mentioned any of the. Do you think the two-tone thing was sort of drifted on from the new wave as well?
No, I would say it's a different movement.
That would have happened completely anyway, separately.
Yeah.
You think?
I think it was shades of it. I think it informed it. I don't think that version of ska comes with it punk. No.
But,
I think it was a marriage of the two. But it was too far.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Gordon. Welcome back. You're welcome back anytime if you're around.
Well, I enjoyed it. Yes.
I know you hectically. When you let me know when you're available again. As usual. Thank you very much, sir. And I don't know what we're doing next week. But this podcast will be posted to the usual places in the coming days by Shaggy, Spotify being the main one, but all the various podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, it should be. And in the meantime, of course, one day, Pete, we will be on
BBC.
The BBC, yeah. We haven't said anything that the BBC would object to today, have we?
No, we've been very.
We probably mentioned "God Save the Queen" by the Sex Pistols. That probably
we've been very laid back. There was no Benny Hill references or anything else, so we've done well.
Right.
Maybe Love Comes in Spurts right at the end, so we
threw that one. You threw that one right at the end.
It's all right. We can edit that out, Gordon.
That one.
All right. Well, all I've got left to say is thank you, and it's good night from me.
And it's a good night from him.
It's good night for them.